Hello, welcome to MidEast In-Depth, part of Levant TV's press reviews. Rami Khouri writes an article in the Daily Star on citizens of the Arab world, suggesting they should have a role as arbiters in what is happening around nowadays. Khouri says one of the most fascinating issues that define the Arab world today is the precarious status of half a dozen countries that run the risk of collapsing or fragmenting into smaller units. Media speculation, he says, commenced by politicians and scholarly deliberations, all address the possibility that countries such as Syria, Iraq, Yemen and Libya could fracture and give birth to smaller entities that are largely based on ethnic, tribal or sectarian identities. Khouri argues that the fact that so many powerful non-state organizations have emerged across the region in the past half-century is one important reflection of this reality. He says groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS, the Houthis in Yemen, and Muqtada Sadr's followers in Iraq, the Muslim Brotherhood and tribes across the region all reflect the brittle nature of statehood and national identity in many Arab countries, forcing citizens to seek their critical needs in arenas beyond the control of the state. Many, he says, perhaps most Arab citizens have a utilitarian, mercantile and pragmatic relationship with their states and governments rather than a deeply emotional and organic one as people tend to have with their family, clan, tribe, religion or ethnic group. The writer concludes the transactional nature of the citizen-state relationship sees the citizen paying allegiance to the state if the latter provides him or her with basic services that citizens need. These fall into two main categories: material services such as income, jobs, education, healthcare, security and subsidized food and housing, and of course intangibles such as political representation, cultural identity and a sense of opportunity for the future. Khouri finally adds the years ahead will be turbulent and violent in some countries, while a few others such as Tunisia so far will correctly work to reshape and strengthen their statehood by allowing their citizens to be the arbiters and architects of that process rather than its hapless and vulnerable victims. Michael Singh, the Lane Swig Senior Fellow and Managing Director at the Washington Institute, writes a piece titled "The Catch in Lifting Sanctions Against Iran." Singh argues that in waiving sanctions related to the nuclear program, the president would also blunt his most effective tools for countering Tehran's other illicit activities, effectively rewarding the regime for steps it has not taken. He says as nuclear negotiations with Iran come down to the wire, one of the major sticking points, through certainly not the only one, is sanctions relief. The Obama administration, according to other reports, is prepared to suspend US-imposed nuclear-related sanctions early in the implementation of a deal. He says both the Iranian demand and the US proposal represent efforts to surmount the same obstacle, the Congress. The White House recognizes that even if it wished to offer to lift sanctions up front as part of any deal, the Congress's likely opposition would make it difficult to honor such an offer, leaving it to resort to the waiver authority granted to the president by nearly all sanctions legislation. For its part, Iran probably recognizes that the uncertain political support for a deal in the US means a narrow window of opportunity to get the United Nations sanctions lifted. The writer believes in waiving sanctions that are related to Iran's nuclear program. The president would also blunt his most effective tools for countering Iran's other illicit activities, effectively rewarding Iran for steps it had not taken. He says this may be in part a side effect of the way the underlying legislation was drafted, but it would be easier to swallow if the accompanying deal were a strong one, and if in the wake of a deal the White House and Congress jointly devised a modus operandi for countering Iran's support for terrorism and other illicit activities, or better yet, if Iran agreed to abandon those activities as part of the deal. Singh then concludes by a concise policy suggestion, saying that rather than working around Congress, the Obama administration should try to craft an agreement and a broader policy toward Iran and the Middle East that draws support across the US political spectrum. And for more updates, please visit us on Levant.tv. Or subscribe to MidEast In-Depth on iTunes. Thanks for watching and bye for now.